Today I'm going to tell you about the Veronese Easter, known as Pasqua Veronese. This was an uprising during Easter 1797 against the French occupying force led by Antoine Balland. It was part of a wider insurgency across the Italian city-states. These revolts attempted to end the occupation of the Italian peninsula by the French Republic forces. The troops of the French Republic arrived in Verona in 1796 and had been expected to be temporary liberating guests. Little did the people know, Napoleon coveted the rich region of Venetian Lombardy as a republic loyal to France. From the outset, the French troops behaved as a malevolent occupying force. They confiscated assets and tried to overthrow the local government, which angered the local population. At the same time, they craftily did not lower the flags of San Marco in Verona, conscious that it remained formally under the control of the Republic of Venice. Consequently, the Republic of Venice had to remain neutral and could not engage with the French forces. Nearby Bergamo were not fooled by the French assurances. They began to gather their forces, but the French, led by Louis Barraget d'Illiers, occupied Bergamo, and still the Republic of Venice did nothing. Governor Battaglia arrived in Verona on the 22nd of March and convened the government and military leaders. As the leaders argued, Verona's citizens were already resolved to resist the Jacobins. These were French political revolutionaries. As the French generals gave assurances they would not interfere with neutral Venice's territories, already volunteers were beginning to arrive in Verona from the surrounding areas. Anti-French revolts broke out in Salo and forced out the Jacobins and flew the San Marco flag of Venice. A force of 1,000 men, Jacobin, Polish and French, pursued the insurgents to Salo itself, but eventually these uprisings in the surrounding area were put down. Napoleon remained suspicious of Venice as the unrest in and around Verona continued. The agent he sent met the Jacobins, but was found out by the police and had to flee Verona. As the French commander Antoine Balland fortified the city, Contarini sent a letter to the Doge in Venice asking for military support. On the 15th of April, Peschiera del Garda was now a French stronghold. 400 Polish troops now approached the outskirts of Verona. On the 16th of April, a note was posted in Verona, apparently from Francesco Battaglia, calling for the citizens to rise up against the French. It was actually a forgery, drafted by General Landria, seeking a justification for the French to occupy Verona. Despite the Venetian governors ripping down the fake notices in Verona, and they continued to urge the people to remain calm, brawls were already breaking out in Piazza Bra and Piazza dell'Erbe. On the 17th of April, the French soldiers provoked the population, who were now in return confronting the soldiers and attacking the sentries at the Ponte Pietra. The French commander immediately dispatched 600 men to keep order. The French cannons of Castel San Pietro opened up, hitting Piazza dei Signori, which only further enraged the people of Verona. As the French troops sought refuge from the bombardment in Castelvecchio, the Venetian troops were confused as they were reminded of Venetian neutrality. All around them, the Veronese people were attacking the French troops, who now fled the town and the control points on the bridges. The townspeople began a house-to-house search for French troops, as the bombardment continued above. Any French soldiers remaining in Verona was killed or captured. Francesco Emilet, hearing the noise, returned to Verona with his troops. His 3,000 troops and volunteers began to set up defensive positions to block any French escape. The volunteer Veronese townfolk, armed with a mixture of weapons and household items, continued to attack any Frenchmen they found, with and without the support of the Venetian troops. Some Austrian troops, released from the prisons, sided with the insurgents. Emilet now left for Venice, hoping to gain military support. The Venetian government representatives in Verona tried to placate the crowd and negotiated with the French military authorities by hoisting a white flag on the Torre dei Lamberti. Seeing the flag, General Antoine Balland paused the bombardment, but he was only really buying time for additional French reinforcements to arrive. The negotiations predictably failed. Fearing an escalation, the Venetian governors left for Vicenza on the 18th of April and instructed their Venetian troops not to fight. Meanwhile, the streets of Verona echoed to Viva San Marco. The French cannon in Castel San Pietro resumed bombardment of Verona as the truce expired. The Torre dei Lamberti continued to ring out during the revolt, but was hit several times by French cannon fire. As the insurgent leaders argued over what to do, the population continued to fight as best they could. As the battle raged around Castelvecchio, townsfolk had dragged artillery up San Leonardo and, assisted by experienced Austrian soldiers, began to fire on the French strongpoints, and Castelvecchio in particular. A French trick waved a white flag but used it as an opportunity to fire a cannon at the approaching negotiating party. The Austrian colonel Adam Adalbert von Neipperg now arrived in Verona with troops and informed the French General Balland of a treaty, the Treaty of Leoben, negotiated between the French Republic and the Austrian Empire. The Verona population rejoiced, mistakenly thinking that Neipperg had arrived to defend Verona. As Maffei headed to Verona seeking orders, Emilet returned from Venice, having gained no military support. The two Venetian governors who had earlier fled to Vicenza now returned to Verona to resume negotiations with General Antoine Balland. Predictably, the negotiations failed as the population were determined to keep fighting. Bombardment of the French strongholds continued from San Leonardo, while the French strongholds continued to bomb Verona. As the battle raged around Castelvecchio, the cannon operated by the now untrained Veronese citizens were doing very little damage. French troops made raids, started fires to destroy surrounding buildings, but took heavy casualties as they did it. The French hospital near Lazzaretto was attacked by armed peasants, and the French troops inside were massacred. Neipperg and his Austrian troops now left Verona during a truce. A French scouting party was attacked and beaten back at Porta San Zeno by a mixture of Maffei's soldiers and Verona's citizens. The situation in Castelvecchio was getting desperate, and some French soldiers were beginning to slip away via the Scaligero Bridge. Supplies of gunpowder, ammunition and food were also beginning to run low in Verona as the city supported the extra population of volunteers and soldiers. The Venetian Republic agreed a truce and instructed Verona to surrender as it could not be defended. The military leaders and the Venetian officials obeyed and gave instructions that all fighting should stop. The Veronese population had ejected the French troops and resisted the prolonged bombardment of the city. However, the Veronese Easter Revolt was brutally stamped out by 15,000 French soldiers who laid siege to Verona and demanded punitive reparations. On the 23rd of April, they did surrender. Of the original French garrison of 3,000 soldiers, 500 died, 1,000 were wounded, and hundreds of French soldiers and their families had been captured. Well, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video so that others can see it. Click here for some more videos you may be interested in.